Hey, how's it going? Welcome to this House of Venus. I am hoping this message finds you well or as it needs to. Before we begin, I did want to mention that I know I've mentioned in the past how I pick these markers at random, and these obviously aren't random. They are the different aces from the different decks that I'm using today. And I felt that was appropriate. I chose them that way because of the theme of today's reading, which definitely was inspired by one year ending and another one beginning. But as I was working on them, it sort of developed into that idea of messages at the doorway, at the threshold of what is closing, what is ending for you, and what is beginning, what's opening up for you. And so, yeah, it's kind of like inspired by the new year, but it definitely applies to whenever you watch it. It is a timeless reading. And so that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and give you another moment here to look at the cards, and whenever you're ready, the timestamps are down below. And okay, if you're still here, I'm going to assume that you've picked the first card. Let's begin. Hello and welcome to your reading. This is for those of you who are called to pile 1. And before we begin, I just want to take a minute to explain that although this reading was created at the new year and I intended it as an year ahead, it is timeless and pretty much applies to whenever you watch it. So take it as an year ahead from whatever point you decide to watch this video, or whenever you find it or whatever. For this spread, I'm using 2 tarot decks and Lenormand cards. More often than not, the second line takes the message of the first a little deeper, but I read the cards as they pop up. I don't really like to apply too much structure to it. Lenormand can either add or fill in any gaps left by tarot, or sometimes highlight some of its messages. It really depends. Again, I don't like to apply too much structure to it. Whatever pops up kind of just pops up. For you, we have the High Priestess, the 3 of Pentacles, the Lovers, the Queen of Wands, and the 5 of Wands. And that's lovely because you have all upwards cards here. That's pretty cool. Moving into the second line, we have the Ace of Coins, the 5 of Swords, okay, the 6 of Coins, the 4 of Cups, reversed, and the Hanged Man reversed. Lenormand adds the Letter, the Lilies, the Key, and the Mice. Nice, okay, so, we begin with the High Priestess, and the High Priestess shows up with the Lovers and the Queen of Wands. And both the High Priestess and the Queen of Wands hold a lot of power. They are, in their own regards, an embodiment of different types of power, but power regardless. The High Priestess is, among very many things, intuition, the inner knowing that we have about anything. So yeah, it can be intuition, that inner knowing we have where it's just instinctual and we just know something's true or right or whatever. But it can also be like internal knowing of something you know very intimately. So yourself, or a passion of yours, I don't know, just something that you have very deep, intimate, almost secretive knowledge of. And so that's, power, that confidence that comes with knowledge, that's power. And the Queen of Wands, Wands is passion, fire, inner fire. So the things that fuel us, our motivations. And when we are properly motivated, one might say that we are powerful because we pretty much don't let anything stand in our way. And that's what the Queen of Wands is. She is an embodiment of this inner fire that isn't very easily tamed. And so the first thing I'm getting again is just this sense of power. Again, this reading is about messages at the threshold, as one thing is closing and another one is opening. And what I'm getting here is that a lot of what you've been going through, you standing at this threshold, is you standing in your power. Something you've gained through knowledge, through getting to know yourself, or becoming aware of yourself, or having yourself revealed to yourself, whatever the case might be. There is this sense of you having gained some knowledge, some deep sacred wisdom. Either, it might have come from divinity, you seeking it out through faith, or just life happening and you seeing truths that you weren't either maybe not really prepared for, but that really shaped how you're looking at things now. And that's all the High Priestess. She's this knowledge that determines how it is that we are kind of maneuvering through our experiences. And with the Queen of Wands, it adds that confidence of sureness of step, where there isn't any hesitation, and it might not always come because you know exactly what you're doing. It just comes instead from just that inner fire, just this, maybe supplemented, or rather it is supplemented by that inner knowing of the High Priestess. We have the Lovers here in the center, attached to the Three of Pentacles, and the Three of Pentacles is right there between the High Priestess and the Lovers. And the Three of Pentacles is other people around us, the people we collaborate with. So I'm really just looking at this card as just the way that you stand in relationship to just everyone around you. So not even just people that you are in relationships with, rather this High Priestess knowledge, this knowledge you've gained is attached to, or this knowledge you've gained is about how you relate to people around you in general. Or it could also very well mean, how you fit into a specific group, or within a certain relationship, or certain relationships, specific relationships, whatever the case. Again, this is a general reading. You will know what I'm talking about here. It's really just about how you stand in relation to others outside of you. And that can look like very many different things. Like sometimes we go through that experience and we realize that we don't have a lot in common with the people around us. And that's kind of what this reading is pointing to, with the Queen of Wands moving away from the closeness, and not close, like the Three of Pentacles, the three figures in the Three of Pentacles are kind of like very close together. They're working together. And on the other side of the Lovers, we have the Queen of Wands looking instead towards a bigger group of people, something that's more exciting than what's going on in the Three of Pentacles. The Three of Pentacles is something stable, and that doesn't necessarily mean that, because obviously what I'm saying here is that this spread is kind of looking like you having this inner knowledge, gaining this inner knowledge about your place with other people. And this knowledge is kind of forcing you to see, or has opened your eyes to how other people are affecting you, how the people in your life around you are affecting you. And maybe you're also coming into terms of how you yourself affect the people around you as an individual, as who you are. And given that knowledge with the High Priestess of the people around you, the Three of Pentacles, the people who so far are who you've known, given that knowledge, you come into the Lovers, and the Lovers is about how we are impacted by, love, and that's why it's the Lovers. But looking at it more of a broader picture, the Lovers is about how we as individuals are changed by relationships, or how, and also how the decisions that we make, the choices that we make, given the changes that we go through when we are in love, or when we are in relationship with other people. And so that's where I'm going with this, where it's given the knowledge you've gained about where you stand with other people, or this knowledge you've gained of your place in relation to other people, how I've been saying it, leads to the Lovers, which is this choice, this place where you're starting to take stock very honestly of are these people, is this person, and that'll depend on your own experience, whether it's like a group of people that you have to kind of be honest about, or a specific person, a specific relationship. You are at this place with the Lovers where you are looking at that honestly, and it's like, is this someone that I want to be attached to? Are these people that I want to be attached to? And being very honest about it. And the Queen of Wands looking at the Five of Wands. So again, it's same element. The Wands is like excitable energy because it's like fuel, it's fire. And so the Queen of Wands, in this power of knowledge and having the mental capacity to question things in such a brutally honest way, you might now be looking at external people. That sounds weird. New people that aren't included in this inner circle that we're talking about with the Three of Pentacles, whatever that might be. Again, the Three of Pentacles being either like a specific relationship or some relationships, that you are a part of. And here with the Queen of Wands looking at the Five of Wands, you're looking instead to either seriously or maybe just contemplating, up to you. You're looking at what it might be like to go and kind of involve yourself in the excitement that's going on in the Five of Wands, getting back out there, so to speak, looking at your options, essentially. And what's being said here in the second line is pretty much what happens if you pursue that. With the Ace of Coins, that is a reference to this new gained knowledge that we're talking about with the High Priestess, and this opportunity that you have to take stock of your relationships and how you stand in them and what you want to do about them. If you want to stay, you want to go, if something needs to be adjusted, whatever the case might be with the Lovers. That's what the Ace of Coins is referring to, this new opportunity for you to do something. The Ace of Coins refers to an option being taken, you actually making a decision after that contemplation that comes in the Lovers, and with the Queen of Wands looking elsewhere. The Ace of Coins represents you having made a choice, and I'm gonna leave it open because I don't want to force your choice, because with the Lovers there in the center, I have to leave it open to you. This has to be your decision, and any influence that I might give might kind of sway that, and I don't want to. With the Lovers there in the smack middle, that really speaks about balance, about this having to be an unbiased. Sorry, that is my kitten outside of my door, if you can hear that popping off, because I'm not letting her in here. Anyways, with the Lovers there in the center, I don't want to, it really isn't my place to sway your decision anyway. This is something that you have to do, utilizing the deep knowledge you have with the High Priestess. So yeah, the Ace of Coins then again represents you having made a choice, and this choice leading into the Five of Swords, which shows the hurt of pain that is attached to hard things. In this particular card, it shows Isis and Set, after Set has dismembered Isis's husband, whose name I can't remember. Is it Osiris? Whatever the case may be, here is the moment where Set is triumphant over Isis and her dismembered husband. And so there is this brutality to it. Again, going back to that brutal honesty that we're talking about with the Lovers and the High Priestess. And with the decisions that you make, people are going to be hurt. So this is kind of maybe pointing towards, again, I kind of said there isn't really a right or wrong, or I didn't want to sway this in either particular way. But if you decide to stay in a comfortable relationship, oh, okay, never mind. I was going to say, if you decide to stay in a comfortable relationship, no one's getting hurt. But then, okay, here we go with either way. If you decide to stay, and that's what we're talking about with the Ace of Coins. The Five of Swords talks about someone being hurt, no matter what you do, really. And so you kind of have to consider that, whatever that might mean in your specific situation, where you know, if this is about like multiple relationships or a friend group or just whatever it is, if you decide to stay there, you might be hurting yourself in some capacity by deciding to stay. That might be true. Or the more obvious one, if you decide to leave, then those people are going to be butthurt by you deciding to leave these people behind, which is valid and that's on them, but it's also valid and important that you do what you need to do. And so that's what's going on in the Six of Coins, where there is this dispensation of energy, of resources as we have them. And your resources can be your time, of course, your money, but also how you decide to behave with people is also a resource. It's also how, kind of like an energy exchange, the way that money is coins. And so how we act with others can also be behavior, is basically something that the coins can talk about besides money and besides resources, right? Like we were talking about. And so here there is this wise woman giving her resources to unlikely paid, like someone unlikely. Instead of giving it to people or to her family, she's giving her resources to bugs. And the story behind it, in essence, I don't want to get too into it, but she is basically blessed because she gives what she has to these unlikely creatures, and these creatures come and help her throughout her life because of how she's helped them. And so there's this sense of you having to do the unlikely, but in doing so, accepting the blessings that the universe has reserved for you at the other side of this difficult work, whatever it is. Whether, and again, maybe when the way I said it earlier might be a little harsh, where I said that staying might hurt you. That could be true, but another thing it could be is that staying might entail really hard work. Staying might mean you having to do the work of fixing that relationship or whatever it might be. There's going to be something hard, something difficult, a trial in essence that is going to be attached to that decision, is what I'm saying. With the Ace of Coins attached to the Five of Swords, there is a tribulation attached to the decision. Again, no matter what it is that you do, it's just, but that's always going to be the case, so don't let that stop you. Again, if you leave, it's going to be them being butthurt. But if you stay, it could be, you're hurting yourself, but it also could be you entailing on a difficult task because you're accepting staying in this relationship or these relationships. Kind of like Isis has to go and find the different parts of her husband, put him back together, and in order to, set the house and the story straight again. And with that hard work and whatever the decision is, whether it is that you leave and you deal with the butthurt people, or if you stay and you do the work, or you stay and you accept the pain, whatever it is, that dispensation of energy is going to pretty much determine what it is that the universe will give you. And with the final two cups, the two reversals there at the end, these are really good reversals to have, I gotta say. Not that the upwards meanings are bad, but with the Four of Cups upwards, it's especially in this deck, it's about a distraction. It's about us, maybe in this particular case, staying somewhere comfortable, although there is a very real call to leave, or vice versa, leaving something, although we have the divine call, whatever it is, like this bird behind the emperor here, to stay. And instead, we are choosing what keeps us happy in the moment. And so that's the Four of Cups upwards. They're reversed, then we are leaving the distractions in order to pay attention, to heed this call that is pulling us wherever it is that we're being pulled towards. And with the Hanged Man here at the end reversed, it's actually getting up to do that, because the Hanged Man upwards is stasis. Both of these reversals, the Four of Cups and the Hanged Man, are cards of stasis. And so reversed, it's that stasis, that maybe not blockage, but that lack of movement that ends. The reversals means that lack of movement ends. And the Hanged Man pretty much shows Sleeping Beauty in tarot, the hangman is of staying still in order to gain wisdom from whatever it is that we need to gain wisdom from at that moment. And with this card being here at the end and reversed, it's that you do have the wisdom already. With the High Priestess at the very front, you already know what you have to do. It's now a matter of you waking up and doing what it is that you have to do in order to really claim the blessings that it is that you deserve and that the universe has in store for you, whatever that might be. And so Lenormand adds the letter, the lilies, the key, and the mice. And the letter is, both the letter and the key in Lenormand are an answer, more specifically the key. But the letter I'm seeing as something we receive. So this is like the High Priestess, because it's right at the front. So, and also with the Ace of Coins is that option, the choice that we've made, and that choice is a blessing. That choice is a blessing attached to the blessing of the wisdom, the knowledge that we used in order to get to this place where we had these options and then made a choice. So the letter is that wisdom, is that thing, the opportunities delivered to you to make this choice. And the lilies reflects, the lilies is purity, a concentrated sense of self. So us listening to ourselves and being our most authentic self. And that's what's attached to that thing that was delivered. Maybe that's what was delivered, is your own sense of self, that strength that we're talking about with the High Priestess and the Queen of Wands. And that leading to the key, the solution to the problems you might be having. And here with the mice at the end, the mice dissolves things. The mice is plague. The mice is something being deconstructed. And so that's what the answer is. It's something the answer being this knowledge that you're using in order to make these decisions and make the right choice, right? And so the advice here with the mice at the end, and also with the hangman reversed, is basically saying that you need to do there's something that it needs to be dissolved. And your answer, your key, this whole work that you're doing, whatever option it is that you choose, that option will dissolve something that needs to be dissolved. And again, I don't know your life. I don't know what you're going to pick. I know I did kind of give something kind of detrimental there with the Five of Swords, kind of maybe meaning you staying somewhere even though you know you should leave. Understand that if that's the case, the mice is kind of saying that you deciding to stay and accept that pain and that harshness is going to dissolve you or something against you. Whereas if it's kind of those other cases where if you decide to leave and deal with the butthurt because that's what you're supposed to do, that will dissolve something that needs to be dissolved in order for you to gain what it is that you need, that you're doing all of this for in the first place. Like if you're going to leave something and accept the harshness of people being butthurt at you, it's because you know that there's something better for you out there. And so you doing the hard work of, dealing with butthurt people is going to dissolve something like a blockage, an internal blockage, or just like maybe like an unhealthy way of thinking. That'll be dissolved. Again, with the mice here at the end, all it's saying is that whatever it is that you choose, if you decide to utilize your answer, this thing that has been delivered to you, it will dissolve what needs to be dissolved. But the same applies to if you don't use this answer, something will dissolve no matter what it is that you choose. So this is pretty intense, where I kind of, we're kind of getting this sense of no matter what it is that you do, there will be pain. There will be something that's going to happen. So I don't want to say take your time, because I don't know what, you know your situation better than I do. But what we can say confidently is that you do have the knowledge necessary. You do have the power necessary to do what it is that you need to do for you. Not for anyone else, but for you first and foremost. Lots of love. Bye. Hey, Pile 2. This is for those of you who were drawn to the Ace of Cups card. And before we begin, I just want to take a quick minute to explain that although this reading was created at the new year and is intended as a year ahead, it is timeless, and so it applies whenever you watch it. So whenever you watch it, take it as a year ahead from that moment on. So you can watch it like at your birthday or whenever other point throughout the year. It doesn't really matter when you watch it. It applies from that moment, is all I'm trying to say. For this spread, I'm using 2 tarot decks and Lenormand cards. More often than not, the second line takes the message of the first a little deeper, but I read the cards as they pop up. I don't really like to apply too much structure to it. And then the Lenormand cards usually either fill in the gaps left by tarot or highlight some of the messages there. But again, I don't apply too much structure, just whatever comes up, pops up. For you, we have the, Judgment reversed. We're starting off strong, cool. The Knight of Pentacles. The Sun reversed. The Three of Wands. And the High Priestess. Moving into the second line, we have the Eight of Pentacles. The Eight of Swords. The Empress reversed. The Fool reversed. And the World. Okay. And with Lenormand, we have the Bear, the Book, the Fish, and the Ring. And so, all right, first and foremost, couple notes. I think I should start with the fact that in this deck, the second row, the Manga tarot, it does reverse the genders. It gender swaps the figures of the tarot, and so the Empress is actually the Emperor. That's why it's number 4. But in this deck, the Emperor is number 3 and the Empress is number 4. But just because the genders are swapped doesn't mean that the meanings are. And so, although it is the Empress here, it is gonna be still the Emperor, essentially. So I'm saying the Empress, and to those of you familiar with tarot, just be aware that although I'm saying the Empress in this deck, it does take on the energies of the Emperor. There is something to be said about the gender swap, and I'll get into that later, but just be aware that that's what's going on. And also I wanted to point out before we get into the reading that although of the 10 tarot cards that we have here, 6 of them are majors, major arcana cards. And so that immediately off the bat tells me that we're dealing with really heavy stuff right now. You, not me. I mean, I am too, but this is your reading, not mine. So, I'm just saying that immediately just that 6 out of 10 of these cards are major. And that the cards, the majors themselves, we have the Fool, which doesn't have a numerical value, and so it doesn't have a placement among the numbers. But the other majors, we have 2, the High Priestess, which is at the very beginning, and the other majors, the Empress, 4 at the beginning. And then we have the Sun, 19, Judgment, 20, and the World, 21. So the last 3 cards of the major arcana. So this reading is about, messages at the threshold as one thing closes and another one begins, and that is this pick a card really, I guess, was made for you, because so many of the themes of this specific reading take on what the theme of this whole pick a card was about. And so beyond just the fact that the majors are from the beginning and at the very end, there is also sun and moon energy, where of course we have the sun, but the high priestess shows the moon. And I'm noticing in the second row there's the bookending cards, the Eight of Pentacles and the World show a couple, but the three cards in the middle show someone singular. And so this could be about a specific relationship between you and another person, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. What we're going to talk about here today could very well be about you fulfilling something that you feel you need to do, accomplishing something that you feel you need to accomplish. So whatever, let's just jump in. So with Judgment reversed, judgment blocked, since it's reversed, is kind of like bad judgment. So it's kind of like a mistake, but the word mistake implies that you didn't know any better. When judgment shows up and when it's reversed, it's saying that we did know better. We did know what we had to do or what we wanted to do, but we chose otherwise. And the sun reversed in the center following judgment reversed speaks to how this lapse in judgment and everything that played out after really deprived you of something, whether it was just, it deprived you of happiness because you made a bad call and it, you had to deal with the mistakes and so it deprived you of happiness, or it just, you acted in a certain way that lost you access to something. The sun reversed, something good being blocked. And the Knight of Pentacles here representing you maneuvering between these energies of the lapse in judgment and the lack that stemmed from that lapse of judgment in the sun reversed. And the Knight of Pentacles moves very slowly, very calmly, very patiently, very wisely. And so although maybe when you had that lapse of judgment you weren't acting very wisely, or maybe you were, maybe you knew what was coming and you did it anyway, but if you didn't, if it really was one of those things where it's like, oh man, I messed up. And yeah, I said that, you did know better. And even though we do know better, sometimes we hope for the best and then the worst thing happens anyway. So it's kind of like, that's kind of what I'm saying, where the Knight of Pentacles can either be you having accepted these terms because you knew it's what needed to happen, in which case the High Priestess fully highlights that wisdom that you were acting with. But if that wasn't the case, if you did take a gamble knowing you should have done a certain thing but you didn't, or you acted otherwise and you were hoping for the best and it didn't pan out for you, whatever the case, it gained you wisdom. Now that you've experienced the lack of the sun reversed, you have learned something about how to move, how to act, because the Knight of Pentacles is very considerate in his movements and the way that he acts. No rash movements. Everything is very thought through. And on the other side of that lack is the Three of Wands, and it shows this growth kind of protruding from these skulls. Kind of like a symbolism. There's a lot of symbolism for this in this deck, the Santa Muerte deck, but this is just one of the cards that shows life stemming from death. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be so dramatic as like something died or something, the thing that you lost is completely lost. It might not be that severe, it might be. Whatever the case is, from that lack, something can grow. And what's remarkable about the Three of Wands popping up next to the High Priestess, or just in the same spread with this deck, is that the bird, the thing there in the middle landing on the skulls in the Three of Wands, is the same type of bird or creature that's in the High Priestess with her there on top of her throne. And he's carrying a book, she's reading a book, and it's almost like what is sprouting from this dead thing, or from death, essentially, from the Three of Wands. Or if it's not that severe, what is sprouting from this lack is directly attached to, is directly driven by High Priestess energy. And High Priestess energy is deep internal knowledge. So this can be intuition, which is deep internal knowledge, because, you know, that's your gut instinct. That's when you just know something's right or something's true. That's deep internal knowledge. But this High Priestess can also be about something that you do have deep internal intimate knowledge about. So this can be whether about yourself, or if this reading is about you in a particular relationship, then it's the deep intimate knowledge you have of that person, the deep intimate knowledge you have gained from being in an intimate relationship with that person. Whatever the case is, the High Priestess is about deep intimate knowledge. And what is sprouting from that lack, from that death, is driven by this deep, intimate knowledge. It's something that you kind of, again, either you knew you had to do it, which is why, again, the Knight of Pentacles earlier, they're maneuvering through the lapse of judgment and the lack, could have been driven by this deep internal wisdom. And if it wasn't, then it certainly has led you to it. And so, again, this is a message at the threshold. So this could be where you're at. These could be the things that you're working with. And so the second line kind of takes into what could play out next. And it's really interesting because we have the Eight of Pentacles next to the Eight of Swords. And so, yeah, it is important to look at the imagery in the cards, of course. But what I'm seeing immediately is the transference of 8 energy from Pentacles, the material realm, to Swords, the mental realm. And so to me, this is kind of like internalizing physical matter. So experiencing something in the physical realm and internalizing it by reflecting on it, by contemplating it, by analyzing it and mulling it over mentally. And 8 is protection, is protective energy, and it can also be divine energy. And so if you aren't of faith, then this could just be you taking action, you reflecting on the ways that you've acted in the past in order to know what to avoid or what to do more of in the future. And so that's immediately what I got with these two 8s. But then also looking at the imagery, there is this sense of preparation going on in the 8 of Pentacles. And again, the Pentacles are the material realm. So you're preparing in the material realm because of the 8 of Swords, which shows someone at the edge of a cliff and bound, and seemingly with no way out. But the purpose of the 8 of Swords, traditionally, when there's like with these, traditionally the image on the 8 of Swords is one of an oppression that we ourselves made, and so we ourselves can get out of. And so we look at the image where, yeah, he's bound, but not in a way that prevents a lot of movement. Not in a way that would prevent this person from freeing themselves. And in fact, there are swords right there, not too tall, so very small, not very dangerous, that this character could, kneel down and cut these ties with, and then free themselves from this oppression. And so I'm seeing these two cards as like preparing for something that you're kind of over preparing for. Like you don't need to do all of these steps that you feel that you need to take. And it kind of looks in the 8 of Pentacles like he's preparing for battle. I could be completely wrong. Maybe there's a traditional cultural significance to this activity of having a gold circle painted on your chest that I don't know of. But that's what I'm kind of getting a gist of just looking at it. And especially with the Empress there in the middle, which is a warrior energy. But then it's reversed, which again echoes that idea of getting ready for battle, but then there not really being a battle to fight. And so you're over preparing for something. So that's what I'm seeing there, where what you're moving from, the energy that you're moving from is this space of lack, and you have been making decisions based off of what you've learned, the wisdom that you've gained, and what's gotten you through that lack. And so maybe now you're maybe a little paranoid, or you're over analyzing, overdoing things because of that, like that's how badly this lack has affected you, where now you're over preparing for things that you don't really need to prepare for, because that lack you're moving away from it now. And it's now time to free yourself, and realize that there's really no need for armor. And that when we do keep our armor on, when we prepare for battle, when what's called for is peace or inaction, or literally anything that does not require a full set of armor, it prevents movement. And that's what the Fool is. The Fool, like I said, has no numerical value. It's 0, and so it moves freely across all of the major arcana. If that doesn't make sense to you, don't worry about it. That was for my tarot girls. But the point of the Fool is that it is movement, moving from one stage of life into the next, moving, like literal movement, free movement rather. And it's coming up reversed, attached to this Empress reversed energy. And Empress reversed energy, warrior energy reversed, is the warrior that overdoes it. And so if you're overdoing it, you are preventing your own movement, your own progression. And so it doesn't end there though, because we end with the World, the final card of the major arcana upwards. And so what's being said here, the whole point of all of this, is that you have to go through those motions of all of that lack that you went through, all of that hurt, if it hurt, whatever it cost you, whatever it caused you, all of that. And then how, because of those things, now you might move in ways that are a bit much, or over the top, or overdoing it. You know, you're overdressing, over armoring yourself when that isn't called for. And learning that isn't what's called for, and learning what it means to try other things, to approach things without that armor, to approach things knowing that you do have the capacity to, one, free yourself from this idea that you have to keep on over preparing, free yourself from any negative harsh effects that lack might have caused you, and that is preventing you from progressing, like we're talking about. All of this needed to happen. All of this needs to happen if it hasn't happened already. If it's going to happen, you need to go through these motions of learning what it means to be affected by something and what that looks like, and maneuvering not only through the lack, but also through the aftermath. When you do start to build back up and start to gain some things, what does it mean for you to move away from that state of lack and into a new stage where that lack and everything that it caused within you is a thing of the past, is over. It's complete. That's what the World is. Divine completion, full completion of anything we've been working on. And so again, you have all of these majors, and we have the last major at the last position here. And so it's almost like a promise of victory if you continue to do your work. It's like, even if you feel like you're failing, even if you feel like, oh my god, I feel like I'm messing up, and you might be messing up because again you're over preparing, or whatever that might mean for you. If you are used to lack, having anything or building abundance is going to feel weird and new, and it is new. And if it is new, then you should forgive yourself for making or not knowing exactly how to handle it. And what the World here at the end is saying is that all of that is part of the process. All of it is to the ultimate goal of moving you from this place into a new stage, into a higher state of being, a level up, essentially. all of these harsh lessons are to gain you that level up, that progression, something where at the end of it, once you're at the other side of it, way down the line, you'll look back at this and realize how important all of that harshness was, again, if it was harsh, and if it wasn't just like this thing that whatever this is pointing to, you had to go through it, you had to experience those things in order to gain this very necessary progression, and that's what the world is there at the end. And so with Lenormand, we have the bear, which is strength, the strength necessary to maneuver through that lack, and because of that lapse of judgment that we were talking about with the Knight of Pentacles. The strength that the Knight of Pentacles displays as he maneuvered through these harsh energies with judgment and the sun reversed, and also the strength necessary with this like 8 energy of like understanding what it means, the connection between the physical realm and our mental realm. Like, are we overdoing it? Are we doing enough? And that requires strength. And so the bear there kind of like ties that all together. The book is knowledge earned, knowledge gained, and so again echoing the wisdom that is in the High Priestess, the book, right? That is in the High Priestess, and also in the bird with the wands. And this is knowledge gained thanks to that strength displayed in the bear and the Knight of Pentacles and all of those things that we were talking about. And with the fish following that, it's that abundance that you are being guided towards. We have the 3 of Wands and then 3 fish in this card, and right there perfectly next to it. And this this kind of just tells me how much you are gaining for yourself. It's not just one thing that's sprouting from this work that you're doing as you're progressing that's being reflected in the 3 of Wands. It's 3. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like 3, literally 3 things that are growing for you. It could be more, it could be less. All that's being said is that it's multiple things. You aren't going to just gain one path for you to take. The work that you're doing is enabling options so that you have more than one option to take, more than 2. It's like, no, because of what I've learned, because of the wisdom that I've gained, I now understand that I have more than option A or B. I have options C, D, E, and F, or whatever it is for your circumstance. The fish does promise abundance. So that could be literal. It could be beyond just like an abundance of options, like I just said. It could be that this work is literally going to gain you some type of wealth. So if this is like with a relationship, it could lead to like a better, deeper, fuller, more fulfilling type of relationship. If this is a project that is tied to like how you make money, then all of this work that you're doing will lead you to financial abundance. And so finally with the ring, it takes the abundance, the wealth of the fish, and okay, so let me reword that. The ring is wealth and the fish is abundance. And so the difference between that is that abundance becomes wealth if it continues to keep growing. If abundance is consistent, then it turns into wealth, and that's what the ring is. It's the abundance solidified. And so here at the end, with the High Priestess and the world, the ring also just reminds me of like a wedding ring. And so it's like a promise, a commitment. And so it's like, if you stay committed to this work, which has been really hard and which has required a lot of strength from you, you are promised, you are guaranteed the best outcome for you. Because again, we have the world, we have the High Priestess, we have the ring. All of the cards here at the end are very positive, very Like, this is really good energy. And so should you continue to maneuver through all of this harsh energy and continue doing your work, then your success is practically guaranteed. Lots of love. Bye-bye. Hello there, Pile 3. Welcome to your reading. This is for those of you who were called towards the Ace of Pentacles of the Santa Muerte deck. And before we begin, I want to take a minute to explain that although this reading was created at the New Year and is sort of intended as an year ahead, it is timeless and applies from whenever you watch it. And it's, again, not so much an year ahead, so much as just messages at that point between what's closing and what's opening up and what's beginning. So pretty much just take it from whenever you watch it, even though this was created at the New Year. If you want to watch it later on, it's, don't commit to the whole year ahead thing. It's just whenever you watch it. For this spread, I'm using 2 tarot decks and Lenormand cards. More often than not, the second line takes on the messages of the first and brings them a little bit deeper. But I read the cards as they pop up. I don't really like to apply too much structure to it, so if another thing pops up, that's cool too. And the Lenormand either fills in any gaps left by the tarot or can highlight some of the messages that were there. And so for you, we have the 3 of Cups, the Star reversed, the 7 of Coins reversed, the 5 of Cups reversed, and the Hanged Man reversed. Alright, lots of reversals. And then we move into the 4 of Wands reversed, the 8 of Swords reversed, the 9 of Wands. Sorry, the 8 of Swords is not reversed. I just got used to all the reversals. 8 of Swords, 9 of Wands, the King of Pentacles, and the Tower reversed. Lenormand adds the Lady, the Stork, the Clouds, and the Moon. And so, alright, so I'm immediately noticing how, I got distracted by all of the reversals in the first spread, and how in the second part, we start with a reversal and end with one too, but then we have these upwards cards in the middle, which sort of feels like what might be closing, or what's closing, since, right, this is what this message is about, is a period where things were out of balance, and it's closing, or maybe the message here is that it will not close that period of things being out of balance. And I'm saying that because we start with an upwards, and then the rest of the spread in this first half is all reversed. So it almost feels like the imbalance was caused from that movement of upwards into the reversals, and this is that thing that's closing now. And either you're already working towards this, or the message here is that you need to put in the work in order for this period to close of imbalance. And in the second half, we are then correcting that, putting in efforts towards correcting it because of the upwards cards that I'm seeing. But to get into it, we have the 3 of Cups as the first card and the upwards card, which shows union with other people, which, yes, very much could be just one singular relationship, whether romantic or not. It just could be your generally positive connection with someone else. And if it isn't positive, it's definitely not going to be outright negative or one where there's animosity, at least not up front. I don't know your situation. I don't know what this is going to be, but the 3 of Cups definitely shows friendship, whether that is genuine or just at face value, if it's just fair weather friends or whatever. The 3 of Cups the 3 of Cups shows a lack of hostility and instead peace. So again, whether that's genuine or kind of forced, whatever the case, that's what the 3 of Cups is about. And why I'm not immediately assigning a positive role to the 3 of Cups is because of all of the imbalance that comes afterwards almost, I feel it as because of the Three of Cups. Kind of like if you're maintaining the balance between this relationship or these relationships, it's causing the rest of this imbalance and the rest of the spread. Because the star reversed is hopelessness. If we look at it upwards, we see this figure who is hopeless and praying for a miracle, with nothing but just like her friend to hold on to, and just looking up to divinity, to the stars, for help in essence. And so that attached to the Three of Cups is what gives me this idea that this relationship or these relationships aren't entirely good for you. And if it's something that isn't outright bad for you, then it's definitely something that costs you a lot. And that does leave you kind of hoping for more. So yeah, the star reverse can be about hopelessness at its worst, but it could just be you kind of being in this space where this relationship or relationships do kind of have you questioning things, kind of wanting for more, if it's not so severe as the whole hopelessness thing. And with the Seven of Coins reversed, that gives me this idea of, one, disappointment, but two, because we again have these two figures here, and I see there's a lot of singular characters in most of the spread, and except for in the Three of Cups and the Seven of Coins, and in the Three of Cups again, because it's attached to all this harsh energy, I'm not seeing it as super positive. And in the Seven of Coins, it tells the story of two divine figures present at the moment of creation, and there was no source of light or heat for these people to be warmed by or for them to grow food with. And so they decided that there needed to be a great sacrifice in order to create a sun. And one very humble, very he wasn't very impressive looking, pretty much was chosen for the task, and he, pretty much accepted it. Kind of maybe glad to be of service. And so this other figure who's very proud, very boastful, kind of feels ashamed that this person who isn't worthy of being the son, he gets all kind of like butthurt about it. So he starts to be all like, oh, you know what, I'll do it with him too. And so they both come with their offerings, and the boastful proud dude brings like gold and all of his riches because he has them, and the humble figure, brings what he can. And when the moment comes for them to throw themselves into the fire, to sacrifice their lives in order to become the sun and provide nourishment for their fellow beings, the humble being without hesitation throws himself into the fire, while the other boastful one, it grows fearful and kind of hesitates at the jump. But when he sees that the other figure did not hesitate at all, this proud figure grows shameful, because he sees how all of his boastfulness, all of that pride was for nothing. And so he throws himself into the fire after the other one did so without hesitation. And so the first figure, the humble one who jumped in with no hesitation, became the sun, the glorious sun. And the other figure who hesitated became the moon. And that's, according to this mythology, that's why the moon has a more dim light and, kind of goes through its phases, while the sun remains consistent and glorious and provides life and all of the other glorious things that the sun does. And so what I'm getting from just that story, and why I felt the need to say that, is because if we're talking about a relationship that leaves you hoping for better, it's because you feel like you aren't getting enough for what you are giving. And so we take the ideas of that story where you are most likely, you're probably this person, the humble person, who's giving more than the other person. And the story ends kind of in it's there's justice in the story, because the humility and the selflessness is rewarded with the glory of the sun, while the hesitation and the cowardice is in a way punished by not having the same glory as the sun. And so that has a nice ending, but what I'm getting from that here in this spread is that these relationships leave you feeling like you're willing to do so much more. You don't hesitate, while this other person, these other people hesitate with whatever it is that you are wanting to do, or whatever the case might be. And we end the spread, this first part of the spread, with the Five of Cups reversed and the Hanged Man reversed. And the Five of Cups reversed, well, the Five of Cups shows La Llorona, who, when her man leaves her for another woman, in her grief, she kills her children. And when she kind of comes to her senses and realizes what it is that she's done, she kind of loses her sanity and roams the world looking for children to replace just the children that she killed, in essence. So big mistakes, in essence. So yeah, I'm not saying that it could be that severe, right? Where I don't think it killed anyone. It's just the story is attached to this card because this card is traditionally attached to the idea of mourning and grief, overwhelming grief. And so reversed, it is that grief being broken through. It can indicate us suppressing our grief and our pain in order to kind of just fast forward to the part where we tell ourselves that we're okay. And we kind of know, basic psychology tells us that when we do that, when we repress something, it's going to pop up sooner or later somewhere else. So it can indicate that. It can absolutely indicate that this grief that we're talking about with these unhealthy relationships or relationship, and the hopelessness that it leaves you with, and this understanding that you're giving more than you are receiving, that you aren't hesitating when other people are. Maybe you are kind of glossing over that in order to just tell yourself you're okay. And if that isn't the case, then what the Five of Cups reverse is saying is that you have given yourself the space to grieve, to feel what it is that you have felt about all of this sadness, anger, whatever it might have been, and or disappointment, right? Because we said that earlier. And now you understand that this isn't all that there is, that now it's time to go ahead and move on into the next thing. And the Hanged Man reversed gives the idea that you have given yourself the time to grieve a little more weight. Because the Hanged Man reversed is the Hanged Man waking up, coming down from the stasis that is the energy of the Hanged Man. The idea of the Hanged Man is stopping in order to gain wisdom, or to gain something, to learn something. The story here is Sleeping Beauty, who pretty much rests until the conditions are right. She's pretty much put into a deep sleep because there's this curse over her land, and she doesn't wake up until all of that is taken care of and she can continue with her life. And the symbolism there being, again, stopping, stasis, in order for the conditions to be set right, either by our hand or by another. Again, Sleeping Beauty story, someone else does it, but we don't have to apply that to our own life. So then it reversed is then the Sleeping Beauty waking up, us coming away from this stasis in order for there to be movement again. And so that we have the stasis in the Hanged Man gives me that idea that you did give yourself space to grieve, to feel, to analyze this as you had to, and now you understand that it's time to wake up and pretty much continue with your life. And that's why we have the Hanged Man reversed here at the end of this first half, as we continue into this next half again, for at the threshold from one thing into another. And we continue with the Four of Wands reversed, which is our stability taken from us. If we look at it upwards, we see that the Four Wands are holding up the little shelter under which this character stands. And so reversed, it's that shelter, that stability, those posts kind of not stable, being broken, or whatever the case might be, where it no longer stands up to cover you. And with the Eight of Swords here, the Eight of Swords is traditionally about an oppression that we have made for ourselves. But in this deck, the Santa Muerte deck takes the ideas of tarot and applies them to the very heavy ideas of moving from life into death. And that's a whole ideology that it's okay if you're not into that, if you have, your own beliefs about the afterlife, or if you don't have any, whatever the case might be. I'm only saying that because this Eight of Swords then takes that idea of self-made oppression and applies it to life and death situations. Maybe that's not the right way to word. Maybe not applies it to life and death situations, because that's something else entirely. It applies it to the idea of moving from life into death, rather. And so the idea of self-made oppression, as we move from life into death, we see here in this card an army, right, with the swords, and we see a group of people holding up these swords, and they are going to war with what looks like a storm, a face in the heavens. This is divinity. And so I see this like, that angry response against divinity, because going to war is an angry response, and then divinity, again, we're seeing in the face in the clouds. I'm seeing an angry response, your angry response to this lack of stability. Now, anger, if it is repressed and not addressed as it comes along, this outburst against divinity, or if you're not of faith, if you don't really attach yourself to any type of divinity, this could just be you angry at life itself. So the face in the clouds applies to your specific life as whatever is bigger than you, whatever you understand you have no control over. So if that's just life itself, then that's what we're talking about here. You getting angry at life itself for this lack of stability that we have here in the Four of Wands. Maybe even all of this grief that you've been going through. The fact that the work isn't over once you have felt everything that you have felt, and in fact it continues into what happens after. You no longer have those things, or you've moved away from all of those things that caused you grief in the first place. And as we move from the Eight of Swords into the Nine of Wands, in the Nine of Wands we see Santa Muerte herself, which is the main theme of this deck. Again, not only the idea of moving from life into death, but Santa Muerte herself, who is a deity, divine death, and isn't a dark thing, but rather a sacred thing, something to be kind of grateful for, that life does end and then continues, gives space for other life, and then things are just recycled again. Kind of, I don't really know why I feel the need to explain all of these things. Maybe you're kind of into those things, I don't know. Whatever the case is, she's showing up here. And so again, she is symbolizing divinity acting in your life. Again, if you don't attach yourself to divinity, then this is life itself working in your life. And we already had this idea that our efforts with the War in the Swords and the Eight of Swords is obviously no match for this thing that's bigger than us with the face in the clouds. And so our efforts are shown in the Eight of Swords. Divinity's response, or life's response, is shown in the Nine of Wands. So from 8 to 9, the 9 being greater than the 8. Divinity, life, being greater than our efforts. And what is divinity? What is life doing in the Nine of Wands? Chopping down growth. So this could be, maybe when you lost your 4 wands, you were trying to build it back up again. Or maybe these growing wands and the 7 of wands are your continuing efforts to stay in this relationship, or these relationships that aren't healthy for you, that are causing you grief, that where you are giving more than you are receiving. And so now life is like, nope, that isn't gonna work. I'm gonna keep on chopping this down until you kind of understand that there isn't really anything for you here. This isn't a good place for you to grow your wands in, essentially. Because again, although Santa Muerte here herself is representing divinity and or life working with you, the fact that it's Santa Muerte here, she's death. She's removing this. She's taking it away. She is killing it, in essence. These wands that are growing. So although it's life, although it might be divinity, it is that taking these wands away, killing them, in essence. And on the other side of that, the King of Pentacles is one very stubborn. But the thing about Pentacles is that Pentacles represent the material realm. So here, where we are, where we're alive. And in this deck, the Pentacles represent kind of the difficulty of moving from the material realm into the realm of death where things aren't material. And so we see this skeleton carrying a box of materials, carrying maybe a box of wealth, maybe it's treasure, because the pentacles are coins. So he's carrying this treasure, and this figure stands in opposition to that anecdote of you can't take your wealth with you when you die. This dude's trying. This dude is determined to, and this is you continuing to, that determination of wanting to bring things with you. Now, just because this is a general reading, and this whole time we've kind of had two kind of options of what we're talking about, where with the Five of Cups it might have been about you glossing over your need to grief, or it might have been you giving yourself that time and now moving on. The King of Pentacles is kind of the same thing here, where it could either mean you being stubborn about letting this thing die, in essence, and wanting to bring something tangible with you into this new existence from that past thing. Whatever, and if that's the case, cool, whatever, it's your life. But it could also mean, with death coming to take what we're growing in the Nine of Wands, should we understand, should we heed, what we're being told by divinity, by life itself, with all this grief that's being caused, and with the lack of stability, and with our efforts being kind of thwarted by things bigger than us? That's pretty drastic. That's kind of like a crisis. That might kind of be looked at as a house on fire, and when the house is on fire, you grab whatever you can and you take it with you. And so that's another thing that the King of Pentacles might be talking about, where you kind of need to grab what you can and go, but you need to go. The Tower reversed is an echo of that message of like the house on fire. But the thing is that the house on fire is the tower upwards. The tower upwards is the destruction happening. Reversed then indicates our resistance to that destruction. And so that's why I keep, that yes, there is the possibility that, you're being told to, or you're just grabbing what you can and leaving the house that's on fire. But the fact that we're ending with the tower reversed kind of gives me this idea that and not only that, but then also the idea in the Eight of Swords where we are responding to divinity with like our anger, with frustration. And this idea where I was talking earlier, where maybe the maintenance of the Three of Cups energy, those relationships, that relationship is costing us something. All of that kind of points to this idea of putting in efforts to maintain something meant to be destroyed. And it is meant to be destroyed because of the Nine of Wands energy here, where Santa Muerte, divinity, life, whatever you're applying to that, is actively telling you, consistently telling you that this has to go, that this structure, this house does need to crumble and fall and be burned down. And either you stay in the house and burn with it, or you grab what you can and you dip. really harsh, I know. But the thing is that if something bigger than you is working in your life, then it is because it has something better for you. Um, and the more we resist, so long as we resist, we cannot have access to the blessing. What I'm saying is that life, divinity, whatever is working with you, will take away from you whether you like it or not. You don't have any control of that. It's up to you how you're going to react to that. And if your reaction to that is a continued resistance to it, a continued frustration, instead of an open-mindedness to what you're being told is true, then you will never have access to the blessings that are reserved for you because of these things being taken away from you. So you can continue to keep fucking yourself over beyond the grief that's being caused, beyond, you losing things because life says you can't have them, or the continued grief of you maintaining things that you shouldn't be maintaining. You can continue that if you choose to. It is hard. Blessings don't just fall on our lap. We have to actively work for them. And the work involves more than just moving away from what we need to move away from. It actually involves us taking active steps towards, as hard as they might be, towards those blessings. And if you're not a person of faith, this is going to be a lot harder. And I'm not saying that you have to believe in a religious being or a deity or anything like that. You can have faith in yourself. If you don't believe in divinity, if you don't want to apply in any of those things, without some type of belief, without some type of faith, it's going to be really hard for you to stay motivated in this harsh world that continues to tell us that we are not enough. We need something beyond the tangible world, the material world. And the material world here tells us that, again, we need more. We need to have enough. Whatever it is that's kind of like keeping you from doing this work. Part of that is your decision to stay there. And so it's now kind of up to you to listen and do the work necessary. And so I kind of went on a tangent there, sorry. But with the lady and the stork, we have, the lady's going to be you. Whether you're a man or a woman, whatever gender you are, if you don't have one, that's cool. But like, whatever the case is, the lady here is you. And why I'm saying that is because of, like, especially in the first half of the top row, there's a lot of feminine energy, of course, except for in the middle card. Those are two males. At least I think they are, as I remember them. But I'm kind of seeing, like, if we're looking at it as kind of like a comic strip, this, there you are in the star praying, there you are in the Five of Cups mourning, there you are in the Hanged Man asleep, and there you also are in the Three of Cups in relationship with others or another. And so, you're being represented, of course, in all of these figures, but the lady, there's also a gentleman card, but it doesn't really matter. The gender doesn't matter. You are being talked about here in the lady. And the lady attached to the stork is receiving something better, because the stork delivers babies, and so it's like a deliverance of something good, something bright. And so, yeah, I'm just gonna say it, the lady next to the stork does indicate pregnancy, so I don't, I'm just gonna put that out there. If it applies, it does. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. But continuing back to the theme of the whole spread, the lady next to the stork, this is you. I'm kind of seeing it as like, you're seeing these starks flying off into this distance where this rainbow is, and so you are starting here at the beginning. The lady is starting to gain this understanding, this awareness that there is better, but it is at a distance from her. There has to be a movement towards that. It's not where she is. It's not where you are or where you were, and so you do have to make movements towards this thing that's better. And next to that, following that, is the clouds, which is a shroud of darkness, whether that's sadness, grief, or just confusion. Or the clouds can mean a whole bunch of things. Again, it can be, like I said, the the way that grief and sadness kind of clouds our judgment, but it can also talk about very deliberate ways that people or circumstances can shroud our understanding or knowledge of things. Whatever that might be, what it indicates is that in order between where you are there at the beginning with the lady and that happiness that you're seeing on the other side with the stork and the rainbow there at the distance, between those two things is the clouds, or are the clouds. A storm, that grief that we're seeing in the Five of Cups, and that's why this card is attached to that. There is a harshness, a tribulation, a trial attached to the journey you have to take in order to get to those blessings. And with the moon is a very positive card in Lenormand. It's very dreamy and romantic. And so it can point towards a relationship. So the Lenormand is talking a lot about a relationship, because again, the lady with the sword kind of does point to pregnancy, and the moon is about romance, among other things. So for some of you, for a specific few or one of you, this is about a specific relationship, you moving away from a bad one with all of the things that we were talking about tarot, and through the hardship on the other side of that, there being the promise of stability, of romance, of joy, and maybe even the stork message of like pregnancy, if that applies to you. And if not, then that pregnancy could be symbolic for just the abundance that you'll gain when you get to that happy romantic place. Because if we're taking on that idea that I was saying with the lady at the beginning and the stork and then the moon, and that being about getting to a romance at the end of like hardships, and if this whole spread isn't applying to you as romance, then what this is saying is that at the end of this hardship will be a place where you will get to build something new for yourself, kind of like building a family, where you get to rebuild in a place that's now stable. Because we have the lack of stability with the Four of Swords, and then the Four of Wands. And in the Nine of Wands, we have life, divinity, Santa Muerte, taking that away because these grounds aren't fertile for that growth that you're trying to do. Well, if you go through the hardship of moving away from this infertile soil, you will get to that place after that trial and tribulation. You will get to that fertile place where you do get to create stability for yourself, where you do get to build that for yourself. So again, apply it as it does for you, whether this is about a relationship or not, or just whatever it is. There is this promise of your blessings at the end of the hardship. But again, where we ended with the Tower reversed and the stubbornness of the King of Pentacles and your reaction with the Eight of Swords, you do have to be careful that you're not allowing your emotions and so yourself to stand in the way of these blessings that are being promised by the moon. Your enemy here, and maybe the enemy is a harsh term, but like, your work isn't only just moving away from what you need to move away from. It is also making sure that you keep doing the work, keep on the path, keep committed to why it is that you're doing all of these hard things in the first place, until you get to that place where those blessings are there for you and you get to benefit from them. I hope that helped. Much love. Alright, hello group 4, welcome to your reading. This is for those of you who were called towards the Ace of Swords. And before we begin, I just want to take a minute to explain that although this reading was created at the new year and is intended as sort of an year ahead, it is timeless and applies to whenever you watch it. So take it as a message at the threshold of whatever's closing, whatever's opening at whatever point that you watch this at. So yeah, it was made at the new year, posted at the new year, but don't take that to mean that you can only watch this at the new year. For this spread, I'm using 2 tarot decks and Lenormand cards, and more often than not, the second line takes the messages of the first line a little bit deeper, but I read the cards as they pop up. I don't really like to apply too much structure to it. Lenormand usually adds, or rather it fills in any gaps that might have been left by tarot, or it can also pull those messages together. So for you, we have here the King of Cups reversed, the Three of Wands reversed, the Seven of Pentacles, the Sun reversed, the Ace of Wands reversed, and we continue with the Four of Cups, the Queen of Swords reversed, the Tower, the Two of Swords, and the Six of Wands reversed. And Lenormand has the Stork, the Cross, the House, and the Letter. So, a couple interesting things about the spread itself and the way that they landed before we get into the specifics of the cards. The top part, the top half, has all reversals except for the center card. And the way that that center card is kind of playing out in imagery and just meaning, and where it's landing here in the middle as the only upwards card, it's like this is what's causing all of these reversals, all of these blockages that are happening with the other reverse cards. And another thing I'm noticing is how there's no swords in the first half and there are no pentacles in the second half. The swords are the mental realm, the pentacles are the material realm, here where we are at the physical realm, where we can touch things and we experience our life and we interact with other people. And the mental realm is just our mind, right, where we think. And so what this is saying is that the first half is relating to things in the material realm, and the second half is you internalizing those things that are happening here in your day-to-day life, and you're like contemplating them, bringing it into your mind to analyze or whatever it is that you're going to do there. So yeah, just wanted to point those things out before we hop in. We start with the King of Cups reversed, and in this deck gender swaps all of the figures in tarot. So the king of any suit comes before the queen. The queen is the last, takes the place of the king, as the king does in traditional tarot decks. And so, sorry, the Queen of Cups is about not upwards. And obviously I'm saying Queen of Cups because the King of Cups in this deck is traditionally the Queen of Cups in any other deck. And the gender swap speaks to, in this deck, is kind of like a nudge for us to not apply too much structure to, like, the king is always going to be a man or the queen is always going to be a woman. Like, it's not about that. It's all about energies. It does go a lot deeper into like the gender swapping in the rest of the deck, and I do want to like make a video which dives into that a little bit with this deck, but more on that later. My point with this is why I was saying the Queen of Cups is that traditionally we're looking at the Queen of Cups. In this deck it's the King of Cups, same energy. But to avoid any confusion, the King of Cups is someone who is not overwhelmed by emotional matter. The cups are the emotional realm, so the heart where we feel things, are emotions. And when the King of Cups is upwards, he's not overwhelmed by these things. And that doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, when we're the King of Cups, nothing overwhelms us emotionally. It's more so that we are in a good space to handle heavy emotional matter because we are in a place of stability. And so reversed, we are overwhelmed by that emotional matter. In this deck, the picture shows, what I really like about this deck and the Cups court cards is that they're all shown underwater, or at least the Queen and the King are for sure. And he's drinking even though he's underwater. And so it speaks to that that idea of not being overwhelmed by emotional matter, because if water is emotions, this dude's happy to take on more. He's literally underneath water, underneath emotions, and he's like, yeah, let me take some more, let me swallow some more, kind of like in jest almost. And I really like that energy. But reversed, you're overwhelmed, you're almost drowning in all of this energy. And moving into the Three of Wands, reversed, the Three of Wands upwards is contemplating something we desire and then actively thinking of a plan to move towards it. So there's definitely a stage of wanting something or someone, if that's what this is about, where we're just like sitting there and we're like thinking about how much we like this thing or want this thing. And then there's the part of that where we're like thinking of ways to make it happen. And so that's what the Three of Wands is. Reversed, then it's that's not happening. Either because we're not moving into the place of making active moves towards it, or because it's just not possible. Before we get into the Seven of Pentacles, I want to hop into the rest of the reversals, and then we'll come back into the upwards card. The Sun is a triumphant, I almost want to say like emerging triumphant from something, because the sun, think of how the sun pierces through the dark of night to create a new day. And so it's brand new. It's something that starts again. So it could be a beginning, but it's more so the sun energy is having that power within you, having that light within you to end something. It can also point to just like lots of like a blissful type of joy, an overwhelming type of joy, but a good type of overwhelming. Not overwhelmed like the King of Cups reversed is, but overwhelmed like you're crying because you're so happy. It could be that type of joy, yeah, the sun. But then reversed, it's that being actively blocked. And the Ace of Wands, any ace is a concentration of the energy of its suit. And so the wands are fire. The Ace of Wands is just fire itself. Fire. It can take on other meanings, but that's how I'm seeing it here, especially attached to the sun itself. The Ace of Wands here is just fire. So that can be like our inner motivation, like the inner fire that gets us that drives us to do the things that we do. Or it could just be like a lack of warmth, like you feel a lack of warmth in your current state of existence. And your current state of existence is being reflected by the Seven of Pentacles, the only upwards card. And what's cool about the way everything is laid out is that the Seven of Pentacles isn't necessarily a bad card, because it shows someone who's wealthy and safe and stable. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with those things. In fact, these things might be things that you've worked really hard for, really hard to gain and maintain. But what I'm noticing is how the Three of Wands and what she's contemplating is a rose. She has a rose in her hand, and she has it dipped in the water, and water again represents emotions, but it can also represent the psyche. I kind of look at this, the symbolism of her dipping the rose into the water as she's like holding it and thinking on it. Because roses can sometimes symbolize love, and that's what I'm seeing it as here in this specific instance of this image here. She's like thinking of her love, and she's immersing those feelings in her mind, in her psyche, in the river, in order to make those plans necessary to make that happen. And in the Seven of Pentacles, this figure is adorned with roses, but she isn't focused on the clothing, she's focused on the accessories. And of course, we're never really like truly focused on our clothes except for when we put it on, of course. All I'm saying is that where the rose is very important, it's what's being contemplated in the Three of Wands. When we move into the Seven of Pentacles, it's only an afterthought. It's something we're not really focused on. It's not something that matters. It's just a little detail on our clothing. It's just an accessory. So maybe that's literal. Maybe you're not letting love grow, like the Three of Wands is kind of showing in this deck, because you accessorize something, you trivialize something that is meant to be life-changing and life-fulfilling. And maybe that's not about love. Maybe that's something else. You trivializing, you accessorizing, you belittling, you not giving something important its proper due. And so maintaining this wealth, maintaining this place where you're focused on, I don't want to call it the wrong things, because again, maybe you've worked really hard for these things. And so maybe what's being said is that you now need to look past these things that you've worked for, or look past these distractions if that's what they are. Because if the Seven of Pentacles, the Pentacles are not talking about wealth, if that's the case, then it is talking about, again, the material realm. And so there might be a lot of things in the material realm, distractions, that are keeping you from doing the work necessary in order to address these blockages. Letting these ideas grow, or this love grow, or whatever the case is with the Three of Wands, and therefore not being overwhelmed by these emotional matter, and then addressing it. So there might be like a stifling or a repressing of emotions that's happening with you maintaining your wealth, your focus on the material realm, or whatever's going on, this upward Seven of Pentacles energy. And with you maintaining that, there's this repression of emotion that's causing an overwhelm, whether you're aware of it or not. And sometimes we're overwhelmed emotionally, we don't even realize it until we snap on someone and we're like, wait, why did I just scream at someone? And you realize, oh, right, because I'm repressing this other thing. It could be something like that. And so in removing, or rather shifting our focus from the material realm into literally every other aspect, because this is the only Pentacles card here, when we move away from the material realm and we start to address our internal selves, our internal matter, the internal realms, so to speak, we can start doing the work there, and then realize that we do have King of Cups energy, where we do know how to handle emotions, difficult emotions, and not be drowned by them. But when we're not addressing it, we feel overwhelmed by them, we're drowning. And we have the capacity to grow things like in the Three of Wands, but we just need to give that priority, give that its space. And we do have the capacity for great joy and to close a metaphorical night, if that's something that you're going through, because you have the power of the sun, you have the power to start a new day, you have access to fire itself, inner fire, to motivation, whatever that is for you. It's going to require that you shift focus from the material realm. And so that fire that I'm talking about, the motivation you have access to, I don't know, it applies to your circumstance. If this is applied to love, right? Just to make an example, this doesn't necessarily have to be that. Maybe it's like there is potential for you to be in a happy relationship if you aren't already, or there is a potential for you to fix something in a relationship if you are in one, or if you're in a happy relationship, there is a potential for more growth, more fire. It's going to require for you to actually do the work, pay attention, and not focus too much on, maybe your work, because that's attached to the material realm, or just your responsibilities. And I'm not saying, don't do those things, don't go to work, don't focus on your responsibilities. All I'm saying is that those things are important, but so is the inner work. And so if you give yourself the space to do this work, then love can grow, love can sprout. That's what I'm saying. It's like, as soon as you start to do the work, maybe not as soon as you start to do the work, but should you do the work, you'll find that it's something that you want to do. Like the fire will sprout as soon as you kind of like make it, so to speak. As soon as you tap into this sun energy, like it's there for you. In essence, you just kind of, again, have to shift focus away from, or maybe not away from, but you just have to reprioritize your focus so that not all of it is on the material realm. And the second line pretty much speaks to what happens if we continue on this route where we don't heed the call of doing the internal work and we continue to focus too much on the material realm. We start with the Four of Cups, which shows an emperor who is cozy inside with his wealth and his trinkets. Meanwhile, there is a very rare and beautiful bird singing to him, calling him outside to come outside. And that's what you're doing. You are staying comfortable with your wealth and your trinkets instead of heeding the call to do the work that you're meant to be doing. Which you know you're supposed to be doing, but for whatever reason, no shame, no judgment. I get it. I'm the same way. I'm stubborn too. You're not really getting up and heeding that call. And the Queen of Swords reversed. The swords are, again, the mental realm. The Queen of Swords is very sharp. Knows exactly what to do. Is never really confused because she's very quick-witted. And so reversed, it's us not utilizing our mental capacity, our intelligence, our sharpness. And if you're sitting there thinking like, I'm not a smart person, first of all, yes you are. We all are. Everyone is capable of intelligence, no matter how well you did in school or whatever way you measure intelligence. All of us are sharp, and there are moments in life where, for whatever reason, and those reasons are looking like, us focusing too much on the material realm and not on doing our work, because we're not doing those things, it's causing a hesitation. It's causing a fog in our, sorry, I said that weird, a fog in our mental capacity, in our sharpness. And I'm also seeing, because a queen sits on a throne, and the Four of Cups shows like an emperor, and I'm kind of seeing like, because in this deck, the Queen of Swords she's a warrior. I mean, she's holding a sword. She's ready to fight. And so reverse, it's like a refusal to fight. On top of what I said with the reversal being like not utilizing our mental capacity, it is also like a refusal to fight because swords are weapons. And so it's us not utilizing a sword, even though that's what's being called for. And though this might not be speaking of violence, I hope it's not. It's about us not utilizing our mind. What we know we should be doing. And again, where we were talking about focusing too much on the material realm keeps us from doing internal work, the Queen of Swords reversed echoes that. Us not going into the into the mental realm. And because we're doing that, because we are keeping ourselves distracted, not heeding the call, not using our mental capacity, our sharpness, not going into the material realm, the tower is destruction beyond our capacity to, prevent it. It's catastrophe. It's destruction. And I don't want to scare you and make you think that, your house is going to burn down or you're going to get into a car crash or something horrible is going to happen. No, this is just, what I was saying earlier, where if you don't address this internal matter, your emotions, what you need to address mentally, what motivates you, what is keeping you from staying motivated, if you're not addressing these internal things, then it's going to show up in your day-to-day sooner or later in a way that you can't control it. So, okay, random example, and it's just, you're going to have to apply it to your life however you see it, however this is happening for you. But let's say I make the horrible decision. I have a 6 a.m. shift. I work at 6 a.m., which means I have to be up latest 4:30. And I decide the night before that I'm going to do an all-nighter marathon of whatever movie franchise because the new one's coming out tomorrow, and it's okay, I'll just drink a little bit of coffee and I'll be fine. But then I wake up late and I don't get to have any coffee, and then there's a lot of traffic and I don't even get to go buy myself breakfast, and so I am late to work, I am very tired, and I am depleted of energy because I didn't eat. So now I'm having a tower moment, which is, this isn't chaotic. I'm just having a really bad day at work. Why? Because I made bad decisions. Life came and got me because I made bad decisions. That's a tower. It's things happening because it's on there. There's no foundation. We didn't set up a proper foundation, and so now things crumble. And so, had I gone to sleep early, had I maybe even like prepared myself like a breakfast the day before, and woken up early enough to get ready and make some coffee, I would have had a great day. We would have avoided a tower moment. But because I made all of those horrible decisions, now we're having the tower moment. I'm having a bad day. And so that's what's being said here, is that if you keep yourself distracted, if you don't utilize your sharpness, your wit, if you don't start to internalize these things into the mental realm, you're going to create a tower moment for yourself where you're going to be forced to address these mistakes, these things that you're not doing, if it's not mistakes, if it's not that severe. And we see a fire in the tower, and it continues into the Two of Swords, which returns us into the mental realm again. It's like when this tower moment happens in the fire of that, we'll realize, okay, I have to do this work, because in order to get out of this fire, I need to address the fire. And the fire here being the mental realm, us internalizing those things, refocusing our energy into doing the internal work. And what's interesting is that here in the Two of Swords, she has her eyes closed, which does point to this idea of like pausing to contemplate. But in your spread, it's that continuing hesitation. It's that you literally sitting in this destruction, in this crisis, in this fire, in this tower moment, and you still being like, but hold on, wait, and I get it. Again, I understand. No judgment. I'm the same way. But the Six of Wands reversed here at the end is a lack of victory, and it's being caused because of that hesitation. And why this hesitation? Sometimes that hesitation is good. Sometimes that moment of contemplating in the heat of fire is very important. But in your spread, it's showing up as a continued negligence, as a continued kind of negligence to do the work that's being required of you in the Queen of Swords, and then the Four of Cups, like you being called to do something and you refusing to do it. And I'm seeing the eyes closed here in the Two of Swords as you continuing to keep your eyes closed to what the universe is trying to show you, whatever that is. And if you don't believe in the universe, if you don't apply to divinity, then just life itself, what life itself is trying to show you. So be very wary that you're paying attention to the right things, because when you're not, the important things that you should be paying attention to and that you might not be will come and demand your attention sooner or later, whether you like it or not. And if you have been neglecting to do that work, it's going to show when it finally comes up. As opposed to if you take the time now while you can and you have the space and the time to take care of those things when the fire comes, when those bad days comes, because those days are inevitable, it'll show that you prepared for this, that you've done the work, and you're not caught off guard. We have with Lenormand the Stork, the Cross, the House, and the Letter. And the Stork and the Letter are about delivery, moving. Because the letter, obviously, it's a letter is something that we deliver. It moves from space to space to deliver a communication. And the stork, and traditionally, delivered babies. But the stork, that we see like a rainbow in the distance here in the card, and it speaks to like a movement from where we are at and flying away to that better thing off in the distance with the rainbow. And so again, movement, being delivered or delivering something. And that we have the house and the cross in the center. The cross is a hardship. It is a trial, and it's very appropriately attached to the tower. And it's also because it's also speaking to the moment in the Two of Swords, that fire there. The cross is the hard stuff that we need to do, that requires strength, our strength, and if you have it, our faith in order to get through it. And so it's standing there here between the stork and the letter. So it's like, in order to get to that better place in the distance that we're seeing in the stork, you are going to have to face hardship. And that's what we've been saying with tarot, where in order to address what we need to address, it is going to require the effort, the hard work of moving away from, or shifting focus away from, not entirely maybe, because, you know, we should never really clock out of the material realm, but reshifting our focus so that there is space, so that we're leaving space for all these other things that we need to do, and allow for there to be true joy, like, you know, the sun. And the house, what I'm seeing this as is you wanting to be delivered home. Maybe what you've worked for, what you're focusing on, whatever the Seven of Pentacles energy is for you, maybe that thing is what you are holding on to because you don't have the big thing that you want, the home that you want to call your own, if that's literal or not. The house here can be just stability, if that's what you want. Whatever it is, the house is just somewhere we go to be safe. And something that's stable, something where we know that we can grow things. And we want to be delivered here. Well, in order to be delivered there, you need to go through the hardship of the cross. In order to be delivered home, you might need to go through the hardship of shifting focus away from the material realm, from your day-to-day, and actually focusing on this internal matter, or internal matters rather. And what I'm seeing here is that in order to make space, or rather in order to have access to the joy of the sun, in order to have access to the blessings that are being reserved for you, it's going to require that you make space for it. In order to be delivered home, there needs to be a home for you to be delivered to. If you want for these blessings to be delivered to you, there needs to be a house for you, for these things to be delivered to. There needs to be a space for these things to land, for this letter to arrive at, you know? So it's like, you need to build the space, the stability of the house, in order to have the blessings of the stork and the letter be delivered to you. If you want to be delivered home, you need to build a house. And that sounds kind of counterintuitive, like being delivered kind of means that you show up there and then you're there, you're home. But it's like, that doesn't really happen. We need to create these things. That's kind of like the point of the struggle of life, I feel, is that we need to create the things that we want. And it requires more than just things here in the material realm. In order to build the stability that you want, this home that you want, these blessings that you want, it's going to require that you focus on all aspects of life. A house stands, traditionally upon 4 walls. And if one of those walls isn't stable, then the whole house is at risk of falling. And so if you're only focusing on one wall, the material realm, then the other 3 walls, in this case, the other suits, so like water, emotions, wands are inner fire, swords, the mental realm, all of those other, if we're not focusing on those other realms, then the house stands at risk of falling. We don't have somewhere for our blessings to be delivered to. So do your work, pay attention, it's really great that you have things to focus on and that you have what you've worked for, if that's the case, but understand that there is more to be gained. It's just about you working for it. Lots of love.